Hello everybody, this is Muñoz from the Morristown and Morris Township Library in New Jersey, and today's book talk features a woman of no importance, the untold story of the American spy who helped win World War II by Sonia Purnell. I just happened to finish this book a couple of days ago on the 76th anniversary of D-Day. And the woman at the heart of the story, Virginia Hall, was extremely instrumental in helping in the success of D-Day and in the operations before and afterwards. So before I talk about this woman, Virginia Hall, I just want to talk about D-Day itself. On that day, some 156,000 American, British, and Canadian troops landed on the shores of Normandy along a 50-mile stretch of the northern coast of occupied France. And in the coming weeks and months, some additional 200,000 troops landed, and together they helped to push back the Nazi war machine and defeat the Axis powers, although this took roughly an extra year from the date of D-Day. So when we think about D-Day, there are various images that come to mind, many of them from popular media. So for example, there is the movie Saving Private Ryan. And that of course came from Steven Spielberg. And even with all its flaws, there are some powerful set pieces there. So for example, this depiction of the invasion of the landing on the shores of Normandy. And we know that many men died trying to land and trying to take the beaches of Normandy. So for example, we are familiar with images like this. This is a veteran walking amongst the graves at the American cemetery at Normandy. So we know that many men participated in the war, but we sometimes forget how many women participated in the war and in how many different ways, including as female spies and female resistance agents. So when we think about female spies, many of us think of this particular person, Carrie Matheson from the CIA on show Homeland, of course, a fictional character. And of course, in the show's run, she affected many disguises, including that one. And we also have a lot of books, especially many recent books that focus on women resistance fighters and women spies. So, for example, we have Resistance Women by Jennifer Chiaverini. There's Charlotte Gray by Sebastian Faulks, and you may have seen the film by starring Cate Blanchett. And then there's The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Jenoff. And to some degree, all of these books feature characters based on real-life women, such as the one depicted in this drawing, which was a drawing circulated in the early part of the war, well, in the 41, 42, by this man, Klaus Barbie. You may not recognize him from that photo, but you may remember him from the 1980s and 1990s. And he was the so-called Butcher of Lyon. And Klaus Barbie called the woman in that drawing Nazi Germany's most dangerous enemy. By the way, there was only a drawing because they didn't have a picture of her, only a description. So who was Nazi Germany's most dangerous enemy? Well, Virginia Hall was somebody born in 1906. This is her at the age of 17, 18. She was born to a wealthy banking family in Baltimore, society family. And so in the normal course of things, she would have just been expected to only get the right amount of education and then find the right husband and then fulfill her role as a society matron. But Virginia was not somebody who wanted to follow this and very much rebelled against this as much as she could. Wasn't always successful. She did make her way to Europe in her early 20s and tried to join the U.S. diplomatic corps, but was not successful, at least not in the way that she wanted to. Just to give you context, out of a corps of 1,500, only 6 were women. So she became a glorified clerk at various consular postings in Europe. At the age of 27, she lost her leg, which was an additional strike against her. And this was ironic because she kept trying to join the Corps as a diplomat, but no less a figure than that man at the top, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, shot her down, which was ironic because, of course, we know that he was crippled by polio. So she made her way back to the States at one point. But when the war broke out, she raced back to Europe and became an ambulance driver, which was dangerous work, very dangerous work. So she ended up being recruited by a spy from the UK, and This spy was from the SOE, from the Special Operations Executive, which is the forerunner of today's MI5. And so she received some quick training and then got dropped off in France, was extremely effective in recruiting other spies and resistance fighters, etc. At one point in the war, she got betrayed and she had to make her escape over the Pyrenees Mountains. And one funny anecdote is that she had named her prosthetic leg Cuthbert, and so she cabled her superiors in London and said Cuthbert was giving her a lot of trouble. So they weren't around. Only this junior officer responded, and he said something along the lines of, "If Cuthbert is troublesome, eliminate him." In other words, kill him. So Virginia eventually got back to the States, but was not happy to be on the sidelines. So then she wormed her way back to Europe, to occupied territory, this time under the auspices of the OSS, which had just been formed not too long before. The OSS is the Office of Strategic Services, the forerunner of today's CIA. And so I consider Virginia Carrie Matheson's spiritual ancestress. So Virginia made her way back, ran many networks of spies and resistance agents, and her intelligence was extremely useful in helping to plan and to implement D-Day and the operations afterwards. There aren't too many photos from her from that time period. One of the few is this one from August of 1944, from a little bit after D-Day. The man on the extreme left there was a Frenchman who eventually became her lover and then eventually her husband. Jumping over the rest of the war, once the war ended, she did receive one award, the Distinguished Cross, which is the highest civilian award, in a sacred ceremony. The only civilian present there was her mother. So Virginia did eventually join the CIA once that was formed and served there for almost 20 years. She ended up retiring in 1966 and dying in 1982. I hope that you will read the life of this very thrilling character that very few of us, including myself, have ever heard about. So this book is available on the Cloud Library, both as an ebook as e-audiobook as well. More details about that below. So until next time, please take care, and thanks so much for joining me today.